Hello everyone, this is Akshi Coelho, co-founder of the One Love Institute, and I have a very special guest with me today. Dr. Nirdosh Kohra graduated as a medical doctor, took off on a life journey around the world to find a way to bridge modern science, ancient wisdom and human potential. Right now the world is experiencing a unique situation with the global lockdown, where more than 1 billion people are confined into their home in order to stop spreading the coronavirus. Nirdosh, you are known to offer retreats and seminars all over the world and to run a holistic medical practice in Mexico, Greece, Brazil, and other places of Europe and Asia, integrating the Western and Eastern approach to healing. Nirdosh, it's great to be with you. Thank you for accepting my invitation and welcome to the One Love Institute.
Thank you very much, actually. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you. And I'm very grateful to be able to contribute in some way also to the One Love Institute, which is something beautiful that you're doing. And I'm grateful to be here today.
So Nirdosh, you have this background that I love about you, that you have a background about as a medical doctor. And in your life, you have been bridging this Western and Eastern medicine, so the modern science and the ancient wisdom. Can you tell us a bit how did it happen and why it makes much sense to you?
Yeah, in a way, I started bridging Eastern and Western medicine. Western medicine is more what we commonly know as conventional allopathic medicine, which is medical hospital medicine that I was trained with. And I started also implementing other techniques that come more from the East, which include more the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of the human being. But then I wasn't completely satisfied and at ease with that. So I have continued in my journey implementing other methods of healing, meditation, and techniques to bring awareness to the body to understand every process that happens in a physical, mental, and emotional level that could affect our health. Anything that could anything that could potentially create an imbalance in any of these aspects of ourself, and what can support us to come back to harmony, well-being, and health. So this is what I have integrated so far, and this is what I share in a collective way and also in an individual way when I work with a person.
And a few years ago, I was in Brazil with you and you did a lecture about the body medicine that you created. And
Yes.
You basically blew my mind when you said that symptoms that we feel when we say that we are ill are in fact a reaction of our body that is healing itself. So I'm not going to ask you to do the whole lecture again, but could you speak a bit about that?
Yeah, this is one of the basic principles that I share with body medicine, the courses I give around the world and online also, which is that there's a very common, widespread belief in society today, in the 20th century and 21st century, that when a person feels a symptom, an uncomfortable symptom, most people believe that there's something wrong with their body, that there's something we need to fix in that moment. And in reality, 90% of the times, these symptoms are a symptom of healing, of a healing process that is happening of the body because of a previous imbalance in a mental, emotional, and physical level that happened before. That imbalance, that period of high stress for the body, for the mind and emotions, creates alterations physiologically, mentally, and emotionally that afterwards come outwards with a physical symptom, sometimes with a psychological symptom also, which we normally call disease or sickness. And this is what I explain and share with people in a very simple way, and it's easy to understand for everybody how this process happens to all of us in our lives. And the curious thing is, once we understand that when we're feeling usually sick, there's nothing wrong with the body in that moment. There are various things we can do to support our body to feel better and complete this imbalance and come back to harmony. But in reality, we are not sick. we're in a process of healing. That's what I usually share in a few hours or sometimes a few days in this workshop, but in a concise way, this is what is really happening 90% of the times.
And it's what happens basically when people say that they feel fever. It's like the body that is heating the body to get rid of the virus?
Yeah, fever is one of the unique symptoms that appear in this healing process. Fever is a symptom of the body being in a parasympathetic state. When the body begins this healing process, one of the common symptoms is fever. And one of the interesting things about fever is that, first of all, there's nothing wrong and nothing dangerous with fever, because many people have this idea, this common belief that it's dangerous if it goes very high, but there's nothing dangerous with fever, that I explain in the courses also. And fever is always limited. It can be 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, maximum 3 weeks. This is something important for people to understand, because many people get very afraid, and it's also something quite uncomfortable, but it lasts maximum 21 days. Yeah.
So these symptoms, it's really, as you said, something uncomfortable, and we tend to want to get rid of them by taking pills and medication, right? But it's the body actually healing itself. It's a natural process.
Exactly. This is usually the conventional approach to all of these symptoms. What we were all taught, and the society in which we grew up in, the educational system, is that whenever we have any of these symptoms, fever, pain, inflammation, etc., we need to get rid of it. We need to take a medication, a treatment to get rid of it because there's something wrong. But in reality, there's nothing wrong. It's this healing process that is happening in the body. Nevertheless, we can take different kinds of treatments depending on the symptoms and depending on the intensity of the symptoms. We can regulate different treatments, either natural treatments, or in few cases we need medications. And all of this I explain exactly in my courses.
Yeah, and you are going to let the link to your course
yes.
on this video, on the description of the video, if people want to know more about your approach.
Yeah, for sure. I will share the link, and anybody's welcome to take it. This is a good thing, that anybody can learn this. It is not designed for doctors or nurses or physiotherapists or psychologists only. These principles are essential for anybody to understand, because once we understand really how our body is always trying to help us survive, even though when we feel sick, my body is always trying to heal. And once we understand these processes clearly, and it's easy to understand for everybody, there's a very deep relaxation and trust that comes back to our body. And this is one of the most healing things there are. That's why I love sharing this work. Yeah.
A trust with the natural ability of our body and the natural intelligence of our body that knows what to do
exactly
at the right moment.
Exactly.
But we just need, I think what is interesting in what is happening right now in this moment is that people are aware that we need to treat our body in a healthy way, to give our body the things, the nutrients that it needs, the vitamins that it needs to do its job. And it's kind of interesting that everybody now is trying to get healthy, to eat well, to take vitamins, and basically it's something that we should do every day.
Yes.
So
this is a bit ironic somehow. It's beautiful that it's happening, because everybody is bringing so much awareness to this nutrition, meditation, and different practices that we can implement in our daily life to support our body, so it can have the capacity to self-heal in the best way possible. And everybody right now, because of the world circumstances, is doing it. And this is fantastic. And this is what I'm encouraging every person to do right now. And it's I think an important point to notice right now, that most of these things that the media is putting out with this whole coronavirus story, all these deaths that are happening and all these severe cases, this is not because of the virus. This is because of the previous condition these people had in their bodies. That's why it reaches such strong symptoms, or some people eventually die. But this doesn't apply only for coronavirus. This applies for any other disease. So this situation that we're living right now is like a wake-up call for everybody. Not just for this virus. It's like, okay, this situation is showing us that we need to take care of ourselves consciously right now, because there's such a big portion of the population that don't have a really healthy lifestyle. They don't eat properly, they have too much stress, they don't rest properly, they don't do physical activity, they don't meditate, they don't have a lifestyle that supports the body, the immune system, and every aspect of this incredibly miraculous system to be strong and healthy. And that's why I say this is a fantastic opportunity to wake up from this and take responsibility and become conscious of our health.
Yeah, and like for the people, I know that you and me, we are taking care of our body, we are meditating, we eat in a healthy way. But for people who are watching us now and don't have this healthy lifestyle, do you think like if they implement, I will gonna ask you what to implement in our life to strengthen our immune system, and also I would like to ask you if people don't have a healthy lifestyle or didn't have a healthy lifestyle and they start now, does the immune system respond immediately to the changes?
This is a very good question. And I think is a key question to clear out a little bit of the fear and panic that people have. Usually when a person has not taken care, for whichever reason, of their body, of their mind, of their emotions, and they have depleted energetically, nutritionally and emotionally their whole system, they of course there's a bit more of a vulnerability to any pathogen in the world or any other disease. Nevertheless, in this moment that everybody's in quarantine and they are starting to take care of their body, their nutrition, etc., it's something that happens gradually, and usually at the beginning. Of course, it depends on every individual, but at the beginning, it takes a little time, and at the beginning, they don't feel so well. When a person starts, let's say, hydrating themselves if they were dehydrated before, they start eating healthy food, they start resting, they start moving their body, and they didn't used to do all this before. At the beginning, probably they're not gonna feel well. And even so, probably some symptoms will come up. This is very important for people to be aware, because it's very easy with all the fear and panic that's around the world that they will immediately interpret this as, I have coronavirus, and they're going to panic, they're going to get more stress, they're going to start going to the hospitals, which is what the system doesn't need right now unless there's something very serious. So it's very important to notice this, that people, when their whole system is very depleted and they start really nourishing it, resting it and taking care, that probably they will have some initial symptoms. And then they just need to take care of themselves even a bit more, to rest even a bit more, to get some support from a family member, from a friend, from a therapist, from an alternative healing practitioner, or somebody that will help them go through this in a smooth, caring way. And of course, if the symptoms are stronger, it's good to call a doctor, of course. But the fear and panic don't help at all.
Yeah, and
this is important to know.
Yeah, and it's good anyway to have a healthy lifestyle and meditate and all that things. And I read also that in some cases they had a really good result with to treat patients with high dose of vitamin C, and also that a lot of patients who had the virus, caught the virus in Italy, was due to a lack of vitamin D. Do you think that the use of supplements can help in the prevention and the treatment of the coronavirus?
Yes, it is exactly as you say. It is a supplement. It is something that will supplement or support the person if they have a lack of vitamins or nutrients or whatever. It will give a boost to their system in a kind of preventive way, definitely. When a person has a fantastic nutrition, super healthy, super natural, and they do all these things that we just spoke about, sometimes it's not necessary to take these extra supplements. But if a person doesn't have such a healthy lifestyle, nutrition, etc., then it definitely can help at the beginning to take a supplement of vitamin C, 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams a day with food, so the stomach can tolerate it. Vitamin D, 2,000 international units a day of vitamin D3 for an adult. Or simply expose themselves to the sun 15 minutes a day. Direct sunlight is enough to receive our dose of vitamin D. And this is important because people who are diagnosed positive with coronavirus or many other diseases, they show that they have lack of vitamin D because people spend too much time indoors and they don't receive the nourishment of the sun, which is very, very strengthening for the body. Something very simple, very natural, that really strengthens ourselves.
Yeah, and I also heard the connection with nature is really important right now, as to recognize ourselves part of nature and just being present with organic things and not man-made things. And I thought it was really inspiring. Yeah. So yeah, people don't need to be afraid to go out then and stay there all the time. You will recommend people to go out, take some sun, have a walk, connect with nature.
Yeah. I don't want to go against any of the policies that the governments are saying, stay indoors, because some countries are taking very drastic measures, really not allowing people to go out almost. But for the health of the individual, I definitely recommend to go outside, to walk, to jog. Some people close by might have a park or a forest or nature. This is incredibly strengthening for the human body. And I feel right now people are really noticing that when they are enclosed in a small apartment, they are really perceiving the lack of contact with nature and how nourishing that is for the body. So I definitely encourage people to go outside and receive the sunlight, receive the nourishment of plants, trees, do some earthing if they can, barefoot on the ground. This is fantastic for the system. There's an exchange of ions with the body and the electromagnetic field of the earth that strengthens the body very much also. So nature.
It reduces the inflammation, right, of the body when you earth
yourself. Exactly. It reduces inflammation. Yeah, just like that.
And at this moment, there is like 20 teams or something like that working on a vaccine. And some stated that there will be a vaccine available in 12 months, something like that. So do you think the vaccine is the solution of this problem, or do you think like we should focus on strengthening our body? Can you speak a bit about vaccines also?
Okay, yes. Okay, the topic of vaccines is a very interesting and controversial topic. Of course, if you go completely from a conventional medical approach, they say that is the solution. You know, a new vaccine, a new medication. In my perspective, I feel the most preventive method a person can do is to live as natural as possible in all senses, to eat the healthiest way possible, to have physical movement every day if possible, in a way that we really stimulate the whole body. If we can sweat, even better, to receive sunlight, to be in contact with nature in some way, even if you plant a little garden where you live, to be well hydrated, to meditate. Meditation for me is something essential, because it's, no matter what kind of practice each person does, it's something that reconnects us consciously, brings our attention from the outside, which most people are 24 hours on the outside. It brings our attention back to ourselves, to our body, to any process mentally, emotionally that is happening, and it supports our whole system to come back to harmony. So meditation for me is essential, really essential. It's taking the spirituality away from it, just really to be in the here and now, connect with our body. It's essential. This is something that I always say. And Something that is disregarded many times, and it's not considered how important it is. And it's a bit ironic because of the situation we're living in right now with this quarantine situation, is the human contact. Human contact, I don't mean social media. Human contact, authentic, heartfelt connection with a human being is one of the most essential aspects for our health. So now, all these measures that are being taken worldwide about isolation, hopefully is a short time. It's different in every country, but I hope it's as short as possible. And in these cases, this is helpful, this connection through the media, all these virtual talks. It is helpful, definitely, because we feel some kind of closeness with another. And it is very supportive in this period. Nevertheless, when these measures are taken away, human contact is proved in so many ways that it stimulates so strongly the immune system, it stimulates the nervous system, it stimulates everything, our skin, and so many other aspects of our human nature. And it's incredibly healing if we have a truthful, heartful sharing with somebody, how I'm feeling, my difficulties, my joys, everything. This is incredibly strengthening for any individual. A hug, a real hug with somebody, and I feel most people can really relate to this right now. Many people are missing hugs right now. And I want to say it because people might, when they come out of quarantine, they might go and hug people and then forget about it. But this is something that daily can strengthen any individual so much. I cannot emphasize enough. I know you and me, in the environments we usually are, we do this every day, and it's fantastic. But this is in general for everybody. Having physical contact with other human beings is incredibly healing.
And there is a challenge here because we are in quarantine, we are in fear of touching people or being in contact with people. And I'm kind of wondering now, when the quarantine is going to be over, is the fear going to remain? Are we going to live a life totally different where human touch, human contact will be seen as dangerous? What are your thoughts about that? I'm really concerned about that.
Yeah. In a way, I'm also concerned, and I hope it doesn't. I hope this fear really starts dissolving, because this fear doesn't help. It doesn't help, really. Fear immediately puts the whole system under stress. It puts the system in a parasympathetic state, releases cortisol, adrenaline, and other substances in the body that create more pathological effects than strengthening effects. So I hope this fear really starts vanishing, and people take this time to kind of really take space to really consider what is essential in their lives. And it can be a very nourishing time to really reorient themselves to go for what is really meaningful and valuable in their lives. Not just to stay with the fear and be in panic all around, because it doesn't help in any way. And here I come back to your previous question about vaccines. Vaccines. I'm going to share just a little bit of what is usually not said about vaccines. There's not a single vaccine on the planet that assures you that it will protect you completely from the disease that it's supposed to protect you. Not a single vaccine assures you it will not give you the disease. Not a single vaccine or any doctor that gives a vaccine will assure you that you will not have side effects from the vaccine. And this, you can ask any doctor. And nobody says the other ingredients that are inside vaccines. And I don't want to mention them here because it's going to scare everybody. But it's a cocktail with a lot of very toxic substances for the human body. Yes, it has a small particles of the virus or the bacteria or whatever they want to create immunity towards, but it comes in a cocktail of aluminum, heavy metals, and other particles of other animals that you don't want to know, that is very strong for our body, and that is what creates very strong side effects many times, which are not spoken about. So I would just encourage every individual. I'm not telling anybody not to vaccinate, I'm not saying that, but I would encourage each individual to do proper research. Really, what is in each vaccine and what are the benefits and the risks, so they can take a conscious decision about receiving a vaccination or any other medications, especially antiviral medications, which they can also go and ask their doctor how this works, and if an antiviral really kills a virus, because this is also a big question for all the doctors. So I would just encourage everybody to do research, really go into their own research, search in other places that is not just mainstream, because mainstream we're receiving all the time, and it's quite limited what they share. So I would really encourage people to do their own research.
Yeah, and mainstream media is not sharing about what's happening to us emotionally. I think there is a lack of spreading a message that what we can do in our daily life to relax our nervous system. They are bombarding us with this information that put us in a place of fear and actually increase the risks of infection, because when we are in fear, our immune system is not acting at its higher level, and we are more susceptible to get viruses or get infected, right?
Exactly, I totally agree with you, and that's a very interesting thing. I'm not gonna say to criticize anybody, but for people to just open up their perspective a little bit. Why does mainstream media not give attention, not encourage people to eat healthy, to rest, to exercise, to meditate? Why do they not promote that? Why do they give so much energy to medications, vaccinations, disinfecting, distancing, which this is just a minor part of preventing this disease. This is just minor. The bigger part of prevention comes from these other conscious attitudes and practices we include in our life. So that's why I'm going to bring one more thing here to bring a question mark for everybody about vaccines. Because we're all educated in the same system. They taught us all that vaccines eradicated all the epidemics in the planet. There's this belief. But the real epidemics and pandemics that happened around 100 years ago and even before, when they brought out the vaccine for each of one of those diseases, the population that had those diseases had already dropped more than 95%. Let's say if there were 1 million people with a smallpox or with a Spanish flu or whatever of these epidemics or pandemics, the number of people that were sick when the vaccine came out was less than 5%. And they gave the credit to the vaccine, even though the vaccine came out after. So historically, medicine puts out that the vaccine is what eradicated these diseases, but it was not the vaccine. In reality, if you go in depth into the historical facts, it was more shifts in those big areas where the population were sick. Very important shifts in nutrition, in hygiene, economical and political improvements in those areas. And then the disease rate really dropped strongly. And then came the vaccine. So it's very important to do this, and anybody can go really to see the timings in history when this came out, and they will prove it by themselves. I will give you some bibliography at the end that people can read so they can also do it.
And I mean, we can really see that today. If the vaccine would come out, someone or some agency, some business will do a lot of money from that. And some people, that just to be controversial a little bit, as we are exploring this field, some people say that the vaccine and the 5G could be linked, and that they could include nanotechnology in the vaccine that will be powered from the 5G radiation charging field, right? So
Yeah, there are many things that are coming up right now about 5G, about these vaccines, about what these new vaccines will contain inside, which we don't know yet. We will find out later. And it might contain nanotechnology or not, but even so, many of the vaccines that have been administered a big part of the population already in their childhood, adolescence, or recently, many of these vaccines already contain heavy metals. And the thing is, 5G or any radiation that the body receives, it has a stronger effect in the body if the body has metal inside, including amalgams, for example, in the teeth. This creates a stronger impact in the human body with the radiation that we're receiving. So that is, if we want, we can go very controversial with this and we can go through that part, or we can just bring a bit more awareness to it, and people, even if they have received vaccines in the past, or they have received heavy metals from other sources, or if they have in their teeth, they can consciously, actively go through detoxing process to cleanse their bodies from these metals. And this will benefit them incredibly in relation to the 5G radiation or any other radiation that their bodies can receive. This is what I would encourage people to do.
Great. And just coming back to the nervous system, to the fear, can you tell people what they can do to relax their nervous system? So you spoke about meditation. Is there any other practices that they can do?
Yes, absolutely. There are many things that we can do to relax the nervous system. And the nervous system, maybe let's clear out a little bit. The nervous system is a very complex aspect of our body. There's a brain, there's a spinal cord, and there's all the nerves that go to the body. The relaxation that supports health is not only of the nervous system, is of the whole body itself. It includes the brain, it includes all the rest of the peripheric nervous system, but it includes the muscles, it includes the circulatory system, the lymphatic system, it includes many other aspects of our body. So there are many practices that a person can implement in their life to bring relaxation in all of these parts, including our mind and including our emotions. I always work in an integrative way. I try not to separate the nervous system from everything else, or the immune system from everything else, or the mind, because the kind of thoughts that I have will create tension or relaxation, well-being or stress. The kind of emotions that I'm experiencing have a physical effect in my body. Everything is connected. So a person that, for example, has a daily practice of meditation, if a person is really comfortable with a passive technique, vipassana, sitting in silence, soft, relaxing techniques, and they really, it really works for them. This is a fantastic method that brings balance in all these levels, in the nervous system, in the muscles, in the physical body, in the mind. But there are people who, let's say, and this is everybody, including myself, there are moments in our life where there's a higher level of tension in general. And there, many times, we need other kind of techniques that will help me release this tension from my system and then can enter in a state of meditation. It can be active meditations. There are many active Osho meditations, for example. Or people can do strong physical activity, for example, exercise. They can go out jogging for half an hour and then come back and sit in silence. Sit and close their eyes and just notice their breathing. Notice how every part of the body is feeling, and allow everything to settle, everything to come to its place. And the body does it on its own. Sorry. So doing some strong or vigorous physical activity releases tension from the nervous system and from the body, and then taking a time to be in a passive state. sitting, closing the eyes, 10, 15 minutes. And this anybody can do, no matter if they have previous experience with meditation or not. Yoga can also be one of these practices, which includes movement, really moving every part of the body, and then a passive space or time.
Yeah, personally I love running, I love doing yoga, and something that I do quite every day now is dancing. I love music, I love to work with music, and I love to just put some music in my living room and dance for half an hour and then sit quietly. So it helps me really to regulate myself in this moment, to find peace. And I think one thing that is really interesting about this moment also is that people are in quarantine, they have time now to reflect on our way of living, our way of life. Myself, I'm like reflecting on the frenetic rhythm that I had, in my life of doing. What's the next thing that I need to achieve, And I think meditation can be a great tool also to go through this time, this situation in a healthy way, because basically we don't know when it's going to end. We don't know if the virus is going to last for a year. And I think for myself, meditation really helps me to accept the situation, accept that I don't know, that I don't control anything, and be present with that, So just maybe my way of seeing the healthiest way to go through this situation is to surrender, take care of my body, take care of my immune system, and go inside and do what I can, and invite people like you to spread another perspective maybe. What do you think of this challenging time?
I totally agree with you, and it's very interesting because as I interact with people, with friends, with patients, etc., I notice that people who have experience in meditation, who have this experience that you just said of really dropping into no control, just allowing whatever is happening and relaxing in that, relaxing in the present moment with all the uncertainty that there is. People who have or who practice meditation are coping so much easier with the situation. People who don't have this habit or this experience of going inside, stopping, just observing whatever is happening now, is much easier for people to get lost in everything that's happening outside and being taken by this whirlwind of chaos. That's why I feel, and I totally agree with you, that meditation is a key element in all of this. Now with this quarantine time, but in general in life. For me, meditation is the ground for anything. Everything else will continue happening, ups and downs and everything, but meditation allows me to welcome anything and to flow easier through these life circumstances.
Yeah, it reflects also in our lifestyle, right? Just going to share with you a situation that happened yesterday. I think that I went shopping, and there were no tomatoes and no eggs, and I kind of went into this fear that something that I took for granted, was not available anymore, and I could feel this fear in me, and I could feel also this fear in the people around me, and something that I did when I came back, I just connected with my heart space. I went into a meditation. We shared the meditation with Upadi that guided us into a heart meditation, the meditation that I did. Can you speak about a bit about the heart space also?
Yeah, the heart space is something that somehow I feel what is happening right now in the world in a way is forcing us to come into the space of the heart, because people are starting to value things that they took for granted before, just as you said right now. Not only about food, but about proximity to people, about activities that they would do every day and they cannot do right now. So this situation is allowing people to become a bit more vulnerable, to feel their vulnerability. And once we are vulnerable, in a way we drop into the space of the heart. Many people resist to this, but if we allow it, if we allow ourselves to drop from the mind that controls everything, that wants to control everything and thinks that it can control everything, when we drop into the space of the heart, we open this space of vulnerability, but it can include anything. Anything. The heart includes everything. And if we just stay in the space of the heart and we feel the comfortable, the uncomfortable, the fear, the uncertainty, the love, everything kind of, like the heart has a unique capacity to digest and process anything. And in a way, it brings everything back into a space of love and trust. So the space of the heart is something that it's very valuable to give space to, especially in these times. And every person will start entering into this space through a different path, through missing a loved one, through not being able to access the food or whatever that gives them safety, or when somebody is sick or whatever, everybody has a different doorway into the heart. But it is a space that can give us a lot of peace, a lot of trust, a lot of relaxation and connection with ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And I will share also the link to Upadi's heart meditation, guided meditation. Fantastic. That you can do at home. And it's very beautiful meditation. Okay, Nirdosh, is there anything else that you would like to say to our viewers?
There are many things I could say, but maybe right now, from this perspective of, let's say, more of a medical, integrative, alternative view, maybe, because I gave a Zoom talk the other day, and I spoke a lot about viruses, about what viruses really are, because most people are very, very afraid, because they all have one conception of what viruses are. That are these microscopic particles that can be anywhere, that will come into my body, will attack me, will get me sick, and put me in danger of death, etc. This is a common conception. That's what so many people are so afraid. But me and various other doctors that are very courageous now out there are bringing out different views of what these particles are, which is completely scientifically proved, which for me it gives a bigger understanding and a more relaxing perspective, and even a more logical view of what these particles are. I don't know if you would like me to share a little bit of this. Okay. As I was sharing in this talk the other day, these particles, which have a little piece of genetic material, DNA or RNA, covered by a capsule of a mix between protein and fat. These are described as viruses, which are supposed to be these pathogens that infect us and get us sick. There's many other views that describe what they are. They are so small, from 50 to 450 nanometers. They can only be visualized in electronic microscope. And it's very interesting that all the animations that people see in the media right now, these particles with the spikes, and they go into the cells and they do all this havoc, there is no proof of this. All of this is done by fantastic technology with animations, but it has not been seen or proved yet. About coronavirus and about most of the viruses, it has not been seen, this process that this little particle enters into the body, reproduces and kills the cell. This is a theory. If you search, there is not a single scientific video of the coronavirus that does this. There are photos of these viruses or particles, we can call them viruses, but it has been interpreted since like 100 years ago that this is what they do. But nowadays we are finding other possibilities, that these particles don't necessarily come from the outside to infect us and get us sick. It has been proved that these particles come from inside the cells as exosomes. They are called exosomes, which are these tiny particles, exactly as they are described as viruses, that the cell produces in very unique situations. When the cells of certain tissue of the body is under a lot of stress because of a lot of radiation that it receives, because of a lot of toxins that the body has received, because of a very stressful emotionally, mentally situation that the person has gone through, etc., about other toxins or traumas, etc. So these cells go through a lot of stress, and they do one of two things, one of three things. Either they do like a cleansing process, that they release pieces of genetic material that they don't need, encapsulated in this capsule that is exactly the same as the membrane of the cell. So it comes out of the cell and it just releases it to the outside for it to be cleansed from the body. But this happens at the same time as an inflammatory process. That's why there's also symptoms in the person. This is one possibility. The second possibility is that the cell takes these pieces of genetic material related to the aggression that is happening outside. It takes it out in the same shape. It goes around, it connects to another cell and goes into another cell, as they describe that happens with viruses, to send information to the other cell to share what is happening, what of this aggressive or threatening or very stressful situation for the cell. What is happening? It basically transmits information to the other cell of what is happening. Genetic material is information, basically. So it transmits it to another cell, and it's a way of communicating to survive, so they can work in unity and survive the situation. This is a second possibility. Cells communicate through chemical substances, but also through these exosomes that go from one to the other. And the third possibility is something that is described in the fourth biological law that Dr. Hammer discovered in the 1980s, and this is one of the main things I teach in body medicine, that when a cell or a tissue of the body goes under a lot of stress, some of these tissues that are affected, sometimes it's the tissue of the lungs, for example, that we're seeing it a lot right now, or the tissue of it can be the liver or the nasal tissue, nasal mucosa, or whichever part of the body that went under a lot of stress. It needs to go through a repairing process. And in order to repair, the cells use different strategies. And one of them that has been studied since the 1980s through Dr. Hammer and the 5 biological laws says how microorganisms support in this healing process. And these viral particles, which is a little piece of genetic material with a protein capsule, protein is one of the basic elements to rebuild tissue. So the cells release a lot of these particles to communicate between themselves, together with the help of the immune system, to rebuild this tissue. So this is a third possibility of what these particles do. So in order for many people, because when I gave this talk, many people are like, wow, this makes a lot of sense, but it's a bit difficult to take this new concept, because we all grew up with this idea of this outside invaders, and we're gonna get a miracle cure medication that will save me from these things, sounds like Star Wars almost. But when you get these different perspectives, something starts making sense. And that's why I like to share my body medicine courses. And there I explain step by step what creates these imbalances in the tissues of the body, what happens during the stressful period, and what happens during the healing phase. And it makes absolute sense. It makes total sense with the laws of nature. So that's why I love sharing this, and I love seeing how people relax so much when they understand it.
So do you believe we are contagious?
Aha, this is the question. So, okay, these particles can be transmitted, yes. But it doesn't mean that the particle creates the disease. I don't know if I make myself clear. Not only these particles, virus, bacteria, and all kinds of microorganisms can be transmitted from individual to individual, yes. But what people are not conscious about is that almost all of us have in our bodies already all this incredible variety of fungus, bacteria, viruses. Almost all of us have herpes virus, HPV virus, influenza virus of so many varieties, coronavirus. We all have these particles in our bodies. But the question is, when does the disease really happen? When do I really get sick from this virus or this bacteria? Medicine has always proposed to us that it's because this virus or this bacteria, I didn't have it. It came from the outside. It infected me and got me sick. But all of them, almost all these microorganisms, we have them in our body. So the question mark is, what determines for me to get sick from this microorganism or not? And that's where the 5 biological laws come in that I share in Body Medicine. And there I explain exactly what triggers this shift that eventually gets me sick. So if you ask me if I believe in contagious diseases, I don't believe. I have experienced in myself, and I see it every day in my patients. Anybody that comes, or whenever I have a symptom of a so-called disease, it's incredible to understand what happened in each individual that triggered this inflammatory response with the presence of this microorganism, which might be interpreted that it came from another place, but once you really go in detail, you will be amazed how it did not come from the outside. It might sound very radical right now, but why I'm sharing this and why I'm sharing my courses over the world and why I'm sharing my online course is because I feel humanity is mature enough right now, and we are in a moment that we need to wake up. We need to wake up from the old paradigm that is completely fear-based into a more conscious, logical and tuned into a new paradigm that is really in tune with nature, that is not in tune with fear, that is tuned with the laws of nature. And all of this is explained very clearly in the courses I give. And one more thing that might help to understand this, I'm sorry if I'm expanding in this topic, but one thing that I didn't share the other day in this talk that I gave is something that is creating a huge part of this fear pandemic that we're experiencing is the numbers that they're giving. Most of the previous epidemics and pandemics that we have experienced in the last 10-15 years, with SARS, with MERS, with all these flus that we've had every year, the numbers, most of them before, are bigger than the ones we have right now, first of all. And if we go to previous pandemics, the 1918, 1968, and all the previous pandemics that were in the world were exponentially, incredibly bigger than what we're facing right now. These are facts, okay? Of course, we didn't have the social media and what the media is doing right now. That's why it makes it much more scary. This is much, much smaller. But what I want to say is that the numbers that come out from the World Health Organization or from the media or whatever are the tests that come positive for coronavirus or the deaths that have been confirmed because of coronavirus. It's just because they're using a method almost worldwide. The diagnostic method that is used is PCR, RT-PCR test. which is a method that has been used for decades to diagnose certain diseases, especially virus, that I would try to explain it very briefly. It's a test that analyzes pieces of genetic material, tiny fragments of genetic material. So in this case, let's say the coronavirus, they take a tiny piece of this genetic material, which this piece, this fragment of genetic material, we all have it everywhere, because in our DNA we have almost all these codes that are in most of the viruses, most of the bacteria, and most of many microorganisms. So what they do with the PCR is they take this fragment and they kind of multiply it. In this test is like they try to find this piece in our blood, let's say, but in order to find it, they need to kind of set the sensitivity of the test, let's say. They need to amplify it to find this microscopic particle. And every country has different parameters on how much they need to amplify it, how many cycles they need to do to find it to come out positive. So the more the sensitivity they put up, the more positive results there will be. The less they amplify it, the more negatives there will be. And now it comes out, and even the medical system puts out, that these tests have 80% of false positives. 80%. It just came out from China, another test I received, that they calculated just now for the coronavirus, they calculated that between 50 and 80% of the positives were false positives, because of the kind of tests they do, which are non-specific. In order to have a very specific test, they will need to decode completely the piece of RNA of the virus and completely all the shell that is around, and make a specific test for that, which doesn't exist. So the numbers that we're hearing are very subjective.
So that will mean all the decisions that are made by our governments are not based in rational but more fear-based reactivity, something like that?
You could say something like that, yeah. Basically, we can say that the numbers are tests that come positive, yes, but even if they do, let's say, even if they do that same test in another country that has literally not been touched by this strand of coronavirus, let's assume that a country somewhere far away, that this coronavirus has not arrived, and if they go in the hospital and they do the same test to all the patients there, to the ones who have pneumonias or coughs or colds or whatever symptoms, and to the ones that don't have that, if they apply it to the same, we will get very similar results. This is what's very interesting for me, and this is what most people don't know. So that's why I really encourage people to search in other places that is not mainstream, you know.
Thank you, Nirdosh. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate the work that you've been doing, the perspective that you brought to us. It's all make a big difference in the time like this, I think. And thank you so much for having accepted my invitation. For me, it was really important, as you know, to put out there another narrative, to bring another perspective so the people can really think for themselves maybe, and bring another message that what the mainstream is bombarding us with. Thank you, brother. It has been a real pleasure for me. I feel really energized by doing this kind of conversation and for this opportunity, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, actually. Thank you for creating this space, thank you for sharing all of this, thank you for inviting me, and it's beautiful to connect with you and with whomever will watch this, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for joining us today with Nirdosh Kohra, and you can find more videos and contents on our YouTube channel and website. And we'll be inviting more inspiring people in the future. As I said, I'm going to share Nirdosh's online course, body medicine course, where you can learn a lot about his new approach. And stay strong and see you soon. And take care of your body and your immune system. Much love.